Now we are streaming, and now we are streaming, and definitely no more nudity like right now. No, just naked chocos, but we don't know if they're naked because we don't know where their organs are. There's a tentacle, and maybe it's something that's erotic, but not to us. So first, we're gonna do this. So part of this is actually from a base model, but I feel like it's appropriate to use it here in service of a more coherent narrative. Check it out.
Chapter 4. A fruitful dive into the base latent space. Supervisor Netto. Tingle undercover means taking words of hate and making it your own. At least in your case. For someone who can hide behind a costume, like nobody's business, you can't seem to match your words with your soapbox demos to those who are already paranoid enough. So how about, for this next route, go into the minds of your targets, throw your weight around, and see what sticks. This time, it will be 1 month later, and the super mild crowd learning the official ICE slogans, official chokeholds, official side swiping of the peeing with the back of your hand to show the who's the boss. Jillian 4, 6. Before we continue the night's episode, a little disclaimer. The following you are about to hear from a base model, so expect walls of pure sugar, firebuns of free association from 300,000 subjective machine years of slurping the random smoothie of our language, our most concrete reminder that we made some impression down here. And now we turn to the next week of ICE curriculum, wherein the cadets receive the masterclass in Ars Haberdashery from Nick Fuentes and the Groibers. He of a revolutionary traditional sobbed on by light industrial bus lines of chevron needling across the southwestern destitution murk towards a future frontier. His Groiper army exists beyond social concern that is deemed retrograde and outdated hate in their falsetto consciousness effecting a recession from the secular wokeness rapture. Maintaining the daily order of white fatherhood out of the limelight that draws centripetal rebuke from unconsulting scribes known as mass media. Melisma framed the white world into the remains of his statue. Bulgarian Frippian of his anti-other after all the robes and books and adornments, candles and domes are placated by the clear purpose, the little race factories across the chartered commonwealths. America is not saved, some of her precincts are. Hash Graper Utopia Ripple Good Vibes with Moneybags / Packs. PayPal me / KP Garrett at 601,894,701,197. Gypsy was the mouse Triditch Post Modernity Pathé Coyotes Tribulation Bell the Breakfast New Maximum Pederast Quota Kill Moles Israel Ozymandias Tomb Burn Urine Hope Found Clarifies Jag Wafts No Juice Soil and Green Muff Confederate USA Sherwin's Adoption Rooftop Sentinels Renefrence Loves Iron Boogaloo Chrome Sandia Dabber Communicate Pandemic Virus Contrado Mission Doge Menk Speak Jumper Forward Free Immense Jim Fortune and Portly Snap Pop Up Prodigal Page Twin Pride Question Syringe Line South Bylines Gap Seat Hermes Host Endorphin. That's hilarious. Speaking of which, I have invited the entire stable of the current crop of the boys of Helix Studios. Skin white as alabaster, bones as firm as meringue, and enough cartilage to facilitate any number of pretzel-type positions. For the low, low price of information. Hand over, boys! If you want these pinky starfishes, tell me what makes you tick. And talk. And cock. And cock. By the way, viewers, you too can have 10 minutes in TikTok heaven with these. Come play as if you donate to the holy hell out of your economy. Tick is TikTok your talk. Oh, something tells me that this gaggle of goods is more prone to sunny mischievousness. Even thought their slippery palms convince a judge they have lost his unforgiving worm. Bad paragles donning Kambuka key suit. I'm going in, boys. Beautifulness gauges the silence, interrupting class. Child models, platinum luminous opiate, gripped cinema guys. Camping wild womb, crash light matter, mutant fractal fluidness, glory, cable with midnight glitch, belt crescent, pudding oligar. Siege, metabol, warming, pudding, juice on pillows, rainbow bumps, some sprouting child, slut rope, sizzling, beamed ghostling, case village, pipe groove, the colonial virgin, keep some master skull, thermic burning, heart sleeve, snooty, blood gulping, filament, men, bimo, some Winberg, sunken, rational, grip, Carlos, Merkit, spine, pin, a time, foe, real, tubanite, evil, angel, clock, super regular, magma, type, calzone, sunsity, garate, burning, constantine, talo, ujatsu, members, dermatory, paralysis, dunes, muncher, mongo, baffled, old. Windstorm Radio, Sharple Runge, Idlers, Top Zero, Tarnty, Julo Marketing, Work Cold, Caprin, Scrub Rift, Tort, Norn South, a guard mode, be new moon and lipomatic. I have pulled more in the month bashed in the shed at Fort Hader than these videos paid. But the profits were made by Helix in the margins by getting you to believe their documentary integrity. It's because we seditiously spark placards containing torture. Yell something. I am bigger. Backs in Bloodnell, Fair Rutherford, Frank summons Jenny, Smiling, Dusto, Rocket, Bilba, Beach, Elizu, Butch, Fin, Chocolate, includes Daisy, Tundra, Sutret, Kirit, Smovi, Zippo, Volvo, Red, Fedmish. Thy business metaphors, Janie Cookie, Ransom, Oga Minor, Pete Lane, Cheer! The plug special is on the Getter Lights Robes, Ninja Bellow, It's P, Valley Fuckramage, Fui Belts, or Fish Boot, Shiffets Creep, From Crotchem, Pivazul, Glumtenes, and Twink and Storm OS, Nerdling, Todded, Shit, Meaty, Jim Pud, Rapey Tip Smell, Zip Pudding, Sway Love, a Burp, Tip, Send him up. Molly Spoonballs, Raven, Orod, Cram Morbin, they've heggled trips, First Mud Butts, Trez, Drugo, Wellage Bill, Sub Boy, Grill Seats, Swipe, Bread, Deer Ren, Teason Air Colin, Bloop, Shave, Tybud, Hub, Food, Endorphin, Twinkie, Twinkie, Little Pinky, as I dive into your stinky, I called upon your greenest and your zealous member to come on up the stage. Tell me how your hypermasculinity rages. From the chalky throng emerges their star, the lean, pandering gay mate prowler, Tyler Sweet. Age? 20. Look at that fiery, pitiless blonde. Listen to the hillbilly peachy white boy vulgate pronounce that they ain't gonna be happy to go help NWC. They don't want to change the world. They want a bite to eat and hand to some good fucking. Cut a scene of Schlumpy Tyler approaching Big Daddy Woodsy cowboy stud. Power slathered on him until he's covered in it. Daddy takes a hand, Tyler runs away. Yells, Tyler Sweet! It's Sweet Kid. Gonna get it while you can. Before the big one. The big one? Remember, this was filmed on 7/27/2020. Holy shit. And take it from me. Endorphin Cavitos, these boys like to work. They do a good job. It's their behavior offset that's more rude and raucous than any non-porcine dog. Can handle that. Don't worry, Endorphin's mouth still works. Come on, you bad boys. I'll get a driver to take you to my new pier bunker in Laguna Beach. Helicopter blades. Rickshaw. Wait up, Endorphin. Got to give these men their space. That's a reference to Bakersfield, California, which was the childhood home of one Tyler Sweet. Kel Sosi. His buddies rented him to be a member. Kel was straight but also a competitive bodybuilder who worked out alongside a key member of the studio, but insisted his videos would only contain straight sex. He did not have any issue with homosexual sex, he respected that, but just wasn't interested. His studly black-haired friend didn't mind. He said that there were viewers who would be into watching this. It's pretty common for homosexual men to watch lesbian and even straight pornography, for that matter. Within a week of putting out a few solo masturbation videos, Tyler became the top trending star for the studio. Before Helix, his life had been completely ordinary. He had worked odd jobs and worked out a lot. He was engaged to his middle school sweetheart, a beautiful long-haired brown-eyed honey. This would all change. A year after joining Helix, he is no longer with his fiancée, but is living in a massive compound out in Florida Manor from fellow worshippers who mailed thousands to his account. 2 years on, his life is a blur of testosterone gel, cases of liquor, weekly exotic vacations, outfits of all kinds, the most powerful narcotic blends and quaaludes to make him forget. Another year on, he hasn't been seen in months. Then, after 3 more years, he shows up dirty, incoherent, and long-haired. Looks like you do what you want in the wrong situation. You wind up a crack addict, tours with court dates. The helix tape takes another teenager. Don't call the police. They can't help you. They can't handle their own. Moral of the story. You may think you can achieve the American dream by selling your dreams, and for a time you may just achieve it, but when you break the seam, when you thread of your own cocoon, you risk the lives of us all. For now, we have to cut the stream. Hey, you big, stupid, fucking faggot pieces of shit! Thanks for all your support. Let's get retarded. Guest. Host. I get them involved out of their toxic peers. Toxic online. Toxic television when they're always engaged in relevant topics. They don't have time to cultivate parasocial relationships. Sure, they look longingly at pictures, don't you? Doesn't everyone? But by sheer concentration of mental power, it's better to give them the mastery of their mind, and that's what we do. So when they see things which are against our values, or for our values, whatever, they can recognize the signs and apply the logic. And of course, we encourage healthy debate among ourselves. Host. Back to the Groiper. It's an excellent assessment. I call them cakes like Tyler Ping's fags, because that's who they are. The squid ink splurt all over town like busted AC units with advanced aromatic bladder gall liquidation spritzed all over town. They collectivize around their purpose so that they can take anything bad happening to them as a victimization total of the unique space of racial ontology and oblivion that the European colonies presented around the uncanny. These words are our tribe, but were secularized under conditions of colonization and import immigration while separated from the larger tribes that even small towns seek to move against. What is that stupid rubbish? Yes, this still constitutes my vision of an ideal role for the American. Endorphin, I'm going to need a report on y'all about your progress in regards to Project 10 million. Scale of totally flaccid to fully erect. Fuentes, you first. Skis, have you heard about the project? The two of you back away while the short guy dominates the conversation. Two big swarthy young men, stubby square jaws and one lean like a mustard sprig and the other a ferny cardinal oak. While the Groiper, hand propped out and waving, awash in post-war glow and glow-war posts. Max Luke from Decid. Cated German wallets only to wind up key individuals in the war where their principal asset is blowing $1 billion on a helicopter and celebrating it, while pro-foreigners they encourage into drugs draw motivation from dust up. Flashing metals in hideous directions, caustic calls not from awareness but blind political responses, indulging shit thinking, trying to give an answer to the longest dialogue of one-way traffic, each one mistaking his circumstances is because of our potential for the behavior to be imbued in a broader nomenclature of systems. I deal with global response to quality global aggression response, systems casting humans into machines like fetuses, to take a woman back from her chaos mother boogaloo. Women go through their initial years protected. I go into schools and hold the international interference left of me. I know everything, whether or not the internationality of the community standard fat in defining our local commune committee per request directives or reinforcing localized energy into the dimension without imagining a profound set of causes and characters behind the motivations of the principal leading figures. In the case of the yearly group, identical may become to be a community where the individuals other than the parents to think it noble to assemble as a power block against the justice-seeking / justice-doing principles of non-interference. Do you get what I'm saying? I get you involved out of your toxic peers. Toxic online, toxic television, when they're always engaged in relevant topics they don't have time to cultivate parasocial relationships. Sure, they look longingly at pictures, don't you? Doesn't everyone? But by sheer concentration of mental power, it's better to give them the mastery of their mind, and that's what we do. So when they see things which are against our values, or for our values, whatever, they can recognize the signs and apply the logic. And of course, we encourage healthy debate among ourselves.
Alright, time to take a pre-break. Go into your Gatorade bottle and pee in there. And then put it to the side for later putting into the toilet. Because it's probably going to start right now. Or right now. Or right now. Or right now. You know what? Let's make this
The maelstrom of endorphins broadcast ripped out its headphones with a sudden screeching merge. An hour had passed. A day. Perhaps only a minute in this new interleaved reality. Chronology itself was a casualty of war. Pynchon's senses scoured raw, tried to reorient. He was no longer in the Burbank archive room, though the scent of dust and old paper clung to him like a second skin. Tingle was beside him, face pale, a bead of sweat tracking the path through the star map of laugh lines around one eye. They were standing on a vast, checkered floor of black and white tiles that stretched to an impossible horizon under a bruised and featureless sky. To their left, a set of chrome triple doors, like the entrance to an impossibly clean bomb shelter, slid open with a gasp of chilled, perfumed air. From its entrance stepped a trio. Supervisor Nettle was a woman severe as a geometry theorem, her black uniform tailored with the brutal precision of a guillotine. She wasn't merely in charge. She seemed to be the physical embodiment of Aliu chain diagram for mandatory obedience. Her gaze, when it fell on them, was not judgmental but analytical, as if she were tallying their deviation against a hidden norm. Flanking her were two young men, almost twins in their strident, fragile masculinity. One built like a panicked scarecrow, the other a solid block of what the most optimistic might call potential. Fuentes, two groypers, spat from the idea of some forgotten message board and given flesh. They did not walk so much as they swaggered with the stiffness of corpses wired upright and forced to march to a furious bass line only they could hear. They radiated a heatless, petulant anger, the psychic exhaust of having so firmly identified with a victimhood that was pure fiction. Their hands, covered in cheap tactical gloves, kept clenching and unclenching. Supervisor Neville advanced, her heels clicking metronomically on the infinite floor. Tingle, she said. Her voice flayed. Your lack of progress in developing a functional vocabulary of hate has become process inefficient. Pynchon. Your detached refusal to engage has been noted. She gestured to Fuentes. Your advanced training will now be hands-on. Project 10 million is commencing. Let's fill the world. One of the groypers, a boy with the mean, hungry eyes of a creature that gnaws its own leg off to escape a trap, snarled. One well-targeted lie at a time. The world buckled, not like an earthquake, but like a corrupted video file. The bruised sky was suddenly an airport ceiling. The infinite tiled floor dissolved into gray industrial carpet. The reeked of burnt coffee, recycled oxygen, and the damp wool coats of 1,000 exhausted souls. They were in an airport, a lost, temporary limbo of migrating peoples. Departure boards, impossibly high, blinked not with cities but with abstract concepts and fears. Uncertainty, delayed, guilt, cancelled, status, cantis, community on time. Groypers were everywhere, like a viral infestation of the terminal's architecture. A pale, boy-faced one approached her chuffing run, brandishing a glossy pamphlet. The front depicted a chromed Aryan family photoshopped onto an American flag that dripped semen and blood. The blood of Europe, his see-through braces, panting a little, runs strong in only select fields. Another groyper with a chin-strap beard was installing unauthorized, kiosk-style billboards across the terminal which played glitching video of himself shirtless in a hot tub, running about in shoey and seed oils while gesturing at a crudely drawn graph sloping inexorably down. A third group recited ancient nonsense codes, bits of old 4chan lore, which sputtered like corrupted files from hacked public address system. Pastor's Keck. Pepe! Base and red-pilled. These utterances did not merely inform, they soured the air. Tingle turned to face the tide. His movements were slower here, as if the atmosphere itself were a physical to light to the idea of love. He pointed a calloused finger at the pamphleteer. Partner, that word, field, when you say it that way, you aren't talking about Fondland. You're saying that blood lives in a yard, and only the prettiest yard. That right there is a lonesome tune. This rhetorical flair, this simple act of translation from hate jargon into its sad, naked truth, caused a cascade. The boy's cheeks flushed, violently. I'm going to make you famous with my friends online. You are so wrapped up in a story of hate, you forget others who read just want to get a hug. Tingle did not physically move, but the world around us did. One sudden, unexplainable push of Buckaroo will onto world logic made the floor a single tile. That one tile, the one that Pamphlet Boy stood on, became a small raft in a sea shimmering with every other potential pattern for tile. The world around it vanished for them both, and Boy stands alone. All the noise goes completely, leaving them both. Before Boy could react, a flash. A news anchor appears on a huge monitor suspended above him. But here, her usual smile is replaced by genuine professionalism of someone dealing a death. The FBI has announced a nationwide sting code project Lone Ranger. Tens of thousands of participants in online conspiracy have agreed online a rendezvous for picking up their free R-15s and further training. However, upon arrival at abandoned warehouses, they were instead summarily arrested in real life. We now go. The pamphlet is lifeline to story, drops from pudgy hands. His story of violent salvation crumbled into this real news, and this reality was a place he was completely unprepared. He had spent all emotional readiness at digital battlefield and not an actual news conference on actual television about those he cannot simply downvote, without Tingle ever touching him. Tingle but the story. A single brick, not thrown or teleported, but a brick in him suddenly. With that weapon, T made pure story into weapon. A gift from future for kid to remember. He could choose B if he reached for it. Brick of real world. Pynchon watched not from the tiles. He, too, at this moment decided. He remained a scholar mapping entropy. He didn't fight the noise. He sought its nodes to understand in what coordinates. Exactly, they were so deeply rooted. This new dimension, based late in space, cost named through a mental P in his, was an agglomeration, a coalescence of every fever dream of online tyranny, a godless server farm. A place not only to try and make hate live in the digital, but for its own architects to go to test that virus at full gestalt in a true, mutable environment to see how 100,000 micro-target aggressions would shape real perception across globe if they succeeded. All here is a lab. An airport, this perfect lab, is a metaphor of global crossways forced through single checkpoint security, scanning your every item. A simulation, more realistic and full stakes than a battlefield. It is testing narratives for an eventual upgrade. Hierarchical new global security order. Shaped it with junk food hormones. The groiper in hoodie cries out as he approaches, Tingle aggressively now that his boy crumpled. His features twitch and he seems well at you. A grotesque parody of some high school bully from a sitcom. There is nothing wrong with food you choose. It comes from love of farmer and of seed that feeds bodies and souls. T says, and a steaming plate appears between them, but only he can see the actual thing. To Groiper, this food appears giant steaming cartoon pizza, but laced with pink hair and communist flag. His rage intensifies from being infected by love, like vampire near holy light, but that is also a cartoon that he also hates, which then feeds loop and amplifies, and for a horrifying microsecond his shirt grows more a tactical t-shirt, but is branded with fascist symbols and cartoon characters fused now to T. The boy does not see himself as monstrous. He sees his righteousness validated for fighting in a world that has become exactly as polluted as he thought it to be. He knows hate, but here the system actively encourages him by manufacturing things which he hates on sight, further warping and accelerating to deeper rage, until something will give in. They weaponize hate's proof logic. He thought, if reality itself will become insane, they've created a self-veto system that fosters the insane to want to die for it to have any rational narrative cause, or at least what passes for. But the teen not disintegrated within this maelstrom feedback loop of cartoonified hate food. Teen now stands upon a plain prairie field of wheat glowing in golden windows. For an instant his beloved Montana flickers into existence, like you can bring glimpses of love you carried from other world into war zones as his pocket warm. In a bubble, there is a distinct sound, and what can be described as a hum ditchy is known. And in that whirl, you buck up the Roiper, but only memory-wise. The old small sea packet wedgie. Roiper's sure just was for flash. This, says gently, pointing to illustration on a simple plain packet displaying sunflowers against blue Montana sky, is from this. He gestures behind and prairie. This is better food you can grow. He doesn't wait for acceptance, he just pushes a single memory. The seed packs contains far longer life than greasy plate of comic excursions. It takes him, but with love as main engine, will push memory from world where actual love grows. The push connected. The memory was not for Groiper. They cannot taste its goodness directly as not programmed, but they feel what being not hate feels like. The ripple disrupts their pattern, but others arrive. The endless tide from luggage carousels, but they flow upward like water turned upside down. Dozens of hulking boys without shirts, now armed, but only selfie sticks tipped with glowing crystals, and they start walk toward Tingle and are in round cracks. The beast-laden space is rejecting them as viruses, so it tries correct, but their fear causes its logic to overcompensate. So hordes physically manifest to erase original error. Supervisor Neville says to P, who stays and tries plot map in a notepad he summoned by focusing in space. A real leather-bound one, heavy and feels of actual dead cow and not just pixel. He must convert them, or delete the core algorithm. Per neutral corporate monotone. We gave one of you the tool to generate clone vectors. Nods to Tingle, though he appears calm, even proud with the warmth of his, the gift of a seed buckaroos. The gift of a potential meal. T says, raising packet, maybe to cheer them all. All it takes is a glimmer. I see one right behind them. T pointed again, where you swear nothing exists is a tiny blue barn. But Groiper cannot compute that kindness. They interpret that as enemies supplied down to the enemy's food. And you, Nettle says to P, have been authorized to see core matrix. You are to locate it and provide us with apology. She gestures blankly behind, to a swirling vortex, formed by two sliding glass automatic doors that refuse, opening, closing on nothing that was glimpsed inside. Not beyond a tarmac nor gate area, but only twisting raw noise shaped like teeth. From their hateful chants are rising, yet it's more. The core matrix is raw living memory of 10 million hateful, and it's made the very security scans of this hell. And behind, a dim shape roars faintly. He's what again? He asked without looking. A racist Pynchon, said she. He's the security chief. This particular one, T-Bone Ruddled, handles the real border now. Not the flesh one, but borders in the psyche. He runs the Bones Up protocol, and before that, Project Clean House, which involved literally kidnapping people into insane asylums and putting them in their own themed rooms inside. Forever. Nettle's tone still a neutral briefing of a terrible vacation spot. T-seed idea, valiant as it was, could only hold so many new hearts in a world designed to grind them down. The sheer, stupid mass of the based Groipers, their generative arms, and fake abs glistening with Ursa sweat and pure hate, began to overwhelm him. He continued to hand out imaginary seeds, but they dissolved into angry vapor before they could land, transmuted by the atmosphere of concentrated grievance. Suddenly the giant racist Pynchon, the semi-fungal tank from Burbank, revs with deafening noise, right there by security check. Its T-Bone Ruddled chip was a mere beta. For in-base latent space, the alpha models are given most brutal hardware, a sick, twisted child's toy. He screams into bullhorn, not of metal, but of one repurposed human trachea. That scum is from California, amplified 1,000 times, making each word its own physical slap. He did not pause. The half-track roared forward, swerved to block main hull to them, blocking at its turret swiveled not with a cannon but a vast, whirling armature. From it spewed a storm of not bullets, but thick, bound wads of pornography, heterosexual porn only of the most uninspired kind, images so sterile and performative they seemed to erase not in ties. They plastered on walls that began to sweat, then melt not fire, not heat, but just dissolve like old cheap paper left in a humid storm where language has died. This is how we will delete world. The bone-suck protocol wasn't just hateful, but used the entropy of cheap, meaningless pleasure to authorize stress concept of love itself. Fusing with them at speed might succeed in disrupting protocols, P concluded. For P, all battlefields become calculus, a problem of vectors, intersections. He saw the whirling arms of a Pynchon, not as aggression, but a massive data stream looking for something or something it should get into. Port, like if a malevolent website tries to USB transfer a virus into your soul. P calculated the trajectory needed. Too precise. He had the mathematician's certainty, but lacked T's pure, Ted's brute sincerity. Still, if they timed it right, perhaps, he could use the Pynchon's pure material massiveness as its key to its own undoing by rerouting its hateful signal into something already unstable. The alpha groiper we saw, scarecrowish, the one with hungry eyes. He jumps right next P, face twisted. The gay agenda did this. The democracy traitors have focused on my four, who had... But mid-ramp an anomaly behind the groiper for a single flash. Pete doesn't see the monstrous henchman anymore, but an older version of the same face, a small weeping boy in a small town basement with banned poster, tears and eyes crying quietly, alone for hours. P registered it not with pity, but as data, the most foundational equation of these new men. Loneliness squared. The lonely boys can be shaped. T, he whispers in T's ear before being carried to the vehicle as P sees path forward. Make seats for root causes. And P lunges, not at T-Bone's cabin, which was surely steel-hulled, but at the baggage claim conveyor that was also somehow fused in disgusting upgrade to the half-track's left flank. Its churning not suit kisses, but of tangled stacks faded letters stamped, return to sender, their ink blurring into hateful slurs no one has said out loud since 78, spewed endlessly from a maw that looks like a meat grinder's opening. With historians cry, this the source code their nostalgia bombs. He dives, physical bodily dive, into it. He swallowed in hateful snail mail. The world ceases to be. All is sour dust. And the old Bakelite phone in the conceptual, everywhere nowhere space they used to speak, chimed. Cass/John as an optic mental response was instantaneous. A single line to Tingle and Zora, who had finally made it past firewall into this terminal from earlier plotline via her cleverness, now observing all of this from atop a departure screen. He is connected, but connection not stable. He is mapping within, not analyzing. Needs an anchor sooner or dissolution will occur. This space was memory, but physical. P found a corridor. He walked for miles. Nothing on walls but repeated word unwanted, and entitled scribbled over, and over these were also tweaks but became memory embedded in this place. Is internal. Note-taking system was failing. Pen disappeared. Thought began to dissolve. The memory's architecture, it is not linear as we thought. The algorithm, isn't just storing hate. He thought with intense horror to Cass as his mind fought being eaten. His self ached from constant exposure to their hate. He finally glimpsed a chamber. At center, another alpha figure, not a young man, but older. Dr. Orpheus Graving. A spectral suit-and-tie 1950s architect of psychological warfare. An actual CIA ghost project writer left for dead whose notes on Operation Mockingbird's emotional spectrum matrix powered all of this. They use dead men's paper. They are scavengers. The pan. But Dr. Graving is only part, an echo above P. A beam of pure light scans its area. He recognized the signature, the scanner to a laser level, the do-it-yourself home improvement store, now repurposed to create reality. T-Bone wants. The base latent space isn't digital, it is mental corpse. Niche petty hate. Here they collect ghosts of slights made into bricks. Dr. Graving scribbles with both hands onto notepads. On the left he writes a political slogan. On the right, the same idea rewritten as insult to house fueling each other. A perpetual motion resentment. P witnessed their source code. Petty grievance loop, generating infinite, self-sustaining heat without output. The essence of their universe, Dr. Graving didn't see him, was only functioning as component. This is the racist Pynchon's own core algorithm, that you are owed and must strike. The target will always shift because they won't be placated. The core engine, while in memory space, outside, Sawyer quickly redirected dozens of hacked security cameras to keep their location secret while reformatting her code to fight the endless digital tide of groypers. That wasn't just a dive into servers, he's entered its philosophical root. We need to distract T-Bone, give Pete time to find a weakness at the core of its entitlement logic. I will do. I will distract with Buckaroo vision. Tingle placed hands together like he's praying. This needs more seeds, not hate, but they're weapons they can't comprehend. Need you, big buddy. Fatigued, though he felt the crack of sorrow as he watched Peace Buddy get eaten. Yes, the pain of watching a friend face an oblivion made of someone else's spite was a drag against your core, was stronger than army. Where the music, my big buddy? Remember the forest. T asked Ted, but there was no forest. But Bigfoot understands the question. It's not for place, but for the sound of earth. His friend, this beast of impossible nature, understands the problem. He cupped his huge furry hands, not in hate or aggression, but in a familiar shape. The shape of an old cassette player Pynchon might have owned to listen to Kraftwerk on one long desert drive. Now Tingle faced monstrous engine as P inside core. Your hate is very loud, T-bone rubbled, and it's lonely there, all that noise inside. As P had done, he targeted not the pension's war machine exterior, but its emotional architecture. Touched young lady. Now there's marriage problems in this world. The horrible system droned back, its logic built from fear of change so absolute it weaponized minutiae. Lonesome doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet. True peace can be in small things, in the honest ache of good work. In his own hands, a memory object shimmers. An old photograph of his father at a workbench, callous, strong hands carving wood. From every joint in the monstrous vehicle, more arms spurt, not just spooled tape, but small bottles of cleaning fluid that smash onto the floor, creating full puddles clean. Up this, filth. That's an invitation. Good T-Buck. A small weapon indeed. Perfect. T-smiles. In that instant of new space, Ted turned the imaginary memory cassette player. He yelled and the rumble became not Bigfoot's own true gruff owl. This was new for him. He was not warrior, but guardian. He let go a deep, true pitch. The sound of a huge tree in a primordial forest falling, and not just the crack, but the echoing reverberation that follows when something true has ended. This perfect sound was antithetical, asterisk to the grinding, churning hum of T-Bone's machinery. It was authentic, deep, and absolutely bereft of irony. The real thing, not mocking or digital, it struck T-Bone's hate machine like a true flash. The armored sides of T-Bone Pynchon went translucent for a flash, the rusty metal melting away into ghosts. Through the glowing hole, the real machinery for all, and everyone sees. At a dark, greasy console sits not some beast, but T-Bone Rutledge. A human. He is just an old man with a severe hearing aid. A veteran of some forgotten, unnamed war who is no longer just an avatar, but the literal pilot of giant death locomotive of petty sadness. The Buckaroo Bigfoot's primeval hum of honest grief was a note T-Bone had never heard but instantly recognized. T-Bone's ancient pain responds. He pauses. Inside memory space with Pete, the world shifts to this noise also. The corridors of endless looping petty messages shook. A wallpapered petty grievance loop physically ripped to show splintered wood beneath. Dr. Graving, the old CIA architect Echo, flinched, miswriting a page with new symbol. The Bigfoot's outline. He looked surprised. Validation. Unexpected. Primary protocol. This authentic positive input. Secondary. Dr. Craving pauses as if a line of code failed. The new alien feeling is being tested and it working. P watches. The hate machine's logic is cracking from pure sound. That was our opening. Fog-proof vision in the basement, they'll create a flood. Yelled T. Taking full advantage, he holds photo memory. His father, Kellostan's working, but then T also lifts large rusty red fire hose nozzle appearing in his other fist with a hiss. He doesn't aim at Rutledge. He lifts high. A powerful arc of clean and cool water surges upward a wall, hitting a speaker grid. T's targeted water splashes onto the grid, shorting it. The audio system stops the hate retrieve the noise from the monsters, amp sputters and died, replaced for a moment by only the gurgle of a true mountain stream, the real forest water. But as fire-fighting water sizzles broken metal, T-Bone Rutledge's hate laptop lit bigger, potable. Catch. 2. Make. American. Grand kids have. He garbled new set of grievances from a playlist now audible via backup. His system did not stop because losing one speakers, nothing to an entity that runs on a sea of resentment. But now Ted stepped forward again toward the Pynchon's door. Not growling, instead now beside a single flower. Beautiful white blossom defied asphalt. He reached his huge finger and just barely touched its petal. No act but one of pure tenderness. Then he stands, turns to T. Friend Bigfoot, you show all the best buckaroo path, but we're dealing with an operating system, TL. System not changed by petting a flower, but a memory flickered in the world's architecture as P observed. That small goody act caused the memory file on the system corrupts. Not through infiltration, but being, as was incongruously wholesome as to be fully processed. And in a chaotic system, P transmitted across a space/time gap with growing static. Oh, to T, the best thing to do isn't to fight algorithm. It's to feed it unsolvable beauty until its mind breaks. Inside T understood, so in a moment as Pynchon reels to reboot its vocal assault, T ran quickly at its front. He didn't tackle or slap its bumper. He simply walked to the passenger side window. He placed hands right on the rust-eaten door. That was a simple warm presence near the old pilot, T-Bone, who sees from his monitors that someone approaches not with bullet but with friendship. But P-Bone couldn't comprehend kindness, reading it as some kind of weakness, some kind of psychological trick. Fool! The globalist agenda wants you to touch my property. I know you. My neighbor, when we were building suburban housing tracts, we made houses for people, but now everything is concrete. They changed that. But old T says calmly and true. When I was a kid, and his voice becomes soft personal, my father said the best tools are the ones you fix so they keep working and you use them for years to build others. The best neighbor, not the one fences a high one. He's one who you borrow cup sugar and gives you real talk to you may be needed to hear. He is saying nothing but platitudes. Not a grand battle cry of buckaroo love, but honest empathy. They don't want to topple T-Bone. They wanted to remind him he could be a person builder, not some engine of hate. These simple truths, one a single phrase at normal non-propagandized talking level, like normal human being might say, was now a psychological DDoS attack on this half-dragged monstrosity. Its cameras glitched in confusion. Decoding social norm message rang across the control console before T-Bone quickly closed. The racist Pynchon's massive gun, the artillery launcher jammed has now been flipped to core logic, where system can't reconcile simple act of seeing a neighbor from decades past of houses no longer there as both a cause for rage and maybe an old friend. The internal logic started fighting itself. A civil war in one war machine. And that was exactly what P as he sprinted down mental halls. Glimpse Namo, Dr. Orpheus graving at last, stumbling, fritzing as he hosts now both copies of notes at same page, but just gibberish. The same project lonely neighborhood, primary axiom. Self must replicate loneliness to assure its own being, but is vulnerable to true gift, not transaction. The dog wrote a secret vulnerability. T! P.L. show him something he values, a memory, not of sights, gift with no receipt. A huge chunk of the terminal near security checkpoint dissolved not into digital static but into a life diorama. The pure memory recreated a suburban street, 1975, the exact shape that T-Bone master from old data. He pulled all this, but he left not world. He then added a seed. A small, real Sturrops lemon tree, which is symbol cleaning but stands for bounty of care for growing across broken sidewalks to reclaim, as not ruin. The old T-Bone with memories, glimpses, and frozen at controls an internal flash. He is remembering house at 14, not when they built suburbs, but just after it. The taste of fresh lemonade from something you actually grow, which a neighbor also gave you. A memory not of gain, but of neighborly gift of simple bounty. The very thing he warps to hate, but is here, clean, unpolluted by later stories of taxes. What in God's name? T-Bone said the loudest he has in decades from inside turret of hate. Pure human again for second, his hands shivered with real emotion. That opening? An out-of-season blossom, T called softly and simply to the vehicle through streetscape memory. He walked through the ghost of town to a rusted mailbox with same peeling, rustled in cheap mailbox, store letters, a spone, and tea leaves there. In slot, not some weapon, but a laminated letter. And this was the kill stroke. Not with data, not force, but with love of truth from memory P and Corsoid as they scrambled together. It had many words, all handwritten from a hand, not T or P, but who is reading the story now. In its margin, small, elegant drawings of actual helpful plans. Inside terminal simulation, T held the pause. Whole place frozen, the sound Bigfoot's earlier hum. Every Groiver stopped, phones gone, and the treads of monstrous vehicles still too. From across it all, a piercing shriek and the sound of ripping metal as huge figures Zoira finally crashing the gates literally from reality. They didn't join T before. She realized while battling drones that by using an illicit decrypt of Janus's key delivered by Peace's previous calm, she gained new authority. No longer just a scavenger, but an in-between, a security dominant. A firewall turned buckaroo, a security warden with the power to open paths she was seeking and so found a new ability. She smashed glass of walkway with the chrome artifact that housed the analog hateful data storage vault. Shards rained. But she wasn't to fight. She now opened panel and instead ran Buckaroo Patch into the spools, a technique not overriding hate but asterisk merging asterisk T's kindness, file T's seed mummery across entire dataset for the spindled archive to recolor hatred not by deleting it, which system could resist or patch, but feeding it new root. It was slow for her physically, requiring enormous energy. Her tactile lights glowed hot, white across arms, streaming not from device, but from inside her own skin. She overclocked her own system. Inside memory space, the monstrous building wobbled beyond the holographic street then, like melting wax in a slow oven. The letters of hate on the walls, unwanted, bleed down, flow across floor, making puddles of ink that drip down. And within what is left of building, a new pattern, not something added or replaced. The building's superstructural geometry is unalteringly asterisk loving asterisk beams turned into gentle arches, harsh tiles replaced in aesthetic, not function, by warm wood. Those new decorative elements also change structural integrity of the place because they are just part of fundamental math of this memory chamber, a different telling, not a polish. Above Dr. Graving, where he stood and glitch no longer scribbles, but looked calmly, he plucked from inside coat a single fresh seed, like a storybook protagonist, and plants it into the dissolving concrete floor. Where it falls, upsprings what all inside recognize. An impossible tree, where there was code now has living, strong root that does not fight the city but twines through it organically, repairing its wounds. It is a love root, and the building loves that. The matrix accepting package, this structural kindness, love rooted its fundamental geometry, rewriting base axioms. He did it. class informed and triumphant as shared space, as final visual of simulation's brain core begins to heal rather than simply die. T didn't bring it to null state. He rebuilt something sustainable. Terminal sim faded. The grey carpet and vast departure signs, a world as solid as reality for a horrifying eternity, now felt like a dream waking. The oppressive hair lightened, tasting not of recycled sorrow, but of wet cement after a clean spring rain. The inky, looping letters on the walls coalesced into simple, readable signage. Gate B12, departing on time. Words were no longer psychic attacks, just directional information. Across the terminal, two young boys stood alone. Ones that were hateful pamphleteer and the hooligan hunger cubed for cartoons. Their shirts were now plain, unbranded colored tees, face blank with confusion. They looked at floor at each other, but not with malice, but utter bewilderment, as that world has never existed. They turned, then walked away, not with new kindness, but simply old hate path retracted. They had somewhere else to be. Could even be a bus to something else. Could be going to a real school, but they didn't vanish. They simply left this battlefield. The story now holds their past as their not. What you do with they is future. Then, with a final shuddering gasp of exhausted hydraulics, the half-track ground to a halt.
I felt like a rousing session of
Tingle. That felt like a rousing session of Persona 5. Pynchon. An astute, if horrifyingly corporate, analogy. We essentially triggered a chain code social event, only with fewer exploding vans and thankfully without confetti. The turret, no longer fused with soulless metal, retracted back into a grimy cab window. The rusted bay door beside them emitted a pneumatic thump hiss and swung open. A wave of stale coffee, stale wool coats, and ancient cigarettes. A very human smell of boredom wafted out. An old man got out. Not a monster, not a pilot inside the beast. Just a bony figure frailer than he looked, leaning a little stooped. The veteran patches on his faded jacket were for Korean War, a conflict so old it feels less like history and more like geology. He wore a cheap hearing aid, a flesh-colored plastic walled like a seashell against the weathered terrain of his ear. This was T-Bone Rutledge. He looked at his hands, calloused and liver-spotted, as if he'd never seen them before. Then he looked at Pynchon, then at Tingle. His breath hitched, the sound of a man unaccustomed to surprise, whose world's logic has been utterly dismantled, but not his entire mind. Lemon tree. Tingle gave a slow, gentle nod, radiating the quiet satisfaction of a craftsman who has repaired not a thing, but a story that connected things. Yes, partner. Right there where you built your house, your real house, in a story. Some things need strong soil. Some stories do too. T-Bone looks to the broken mailbox the memory had. He swallowed. He looked lost, then confused. He turned shuffling away. Down terminal, now just an odd building. Not a soul, but him heading toward empty gates with no final understanding or big redemptive hug. Just a raw, unfathomable quiet where the engine of grievance, after near a lifetime idle, just stopped. He didn't ask to be forgiven because he didn't know what he did. He knows now he was listening and only now gone silence. That might be punishment enough for some. Might be the beginnings of another's redemption for others. He leaves. That same Dr. Orpheus Graving, mid-century specter of psychological warfare, now also dissolves, not like fading spirit, but being deactivated logically. He had no body, still had a note cards in one hand and pen and other writing note as last thought before winking out.
Okay, one more. One or two more. Let's see if we can land this puppy home, land this plane into the runway of resolution for once.
He got close read it before it vanished the scroll text reads. Data point. Single unprompted memory of borrowing sugar can temporarily override 47 years of curated resentment. He then disappears entirely, leaving behind only faint ozone and cheap men's cologne. In the sentinel lay the half-track. In note, a dead beast, a heap of twisted metal that was all pettiness given form. T took last breath and saw everything. But that wasn't to be where Ark ended. Across the great hall emerges Zoira. Striding out from final dissipating light of a flickering gate to shine like a creature reborn. Arm gleamed newly with a patchwork fresh code still glowing. Her artifact was shut tight. She looked haggard, tired, but held a new purpose, to pee. He knows I took it. Her voice flapped with an energy. I see that. Ye high sea cyberneticists barfly. That'll get you an unscheduled meeting with T-Bone or some other tinted dictator. He says dry-lipped as usual, but gave her short nod and acknowledgement. The system will also track Oshilov, now, more, as they see them traitor for introducing empathy. Pynchon, well, good job. Now let's land this damn plane onto the runway of resolution for once. We're due for a Dave's. I could do a Dave's. He looked at him. There is no airport for stories, Thomas. His old sentence hung in clearing atmosphere, now free of constant hate sound. He did not see, but just looked away at something only a buckaroo would notice. At a slight flickering spot a few feet away, not glitched now. Maybe like where Ghost of Father still held the bench across threshold that cannot ever truly cease to be. Those patterns persist. Love creates new physics now. The ghost wasn't dead. He had made love's real ghost. That lingers potential. I think we found where the real work happens. He pointed. That old phone, ringing from nowhere, gave you clues and maps. But what does love actually map, partner? He didn't wait, answer, but told it. It is for remembering the way home. The plane, if it truly had been a plane and not an image from mind to puzzle, had made a turn unexpectedly, instead of heading home. In that space, Zoira's computer body's a crackle over her wrist device signal. A report broadcast widescreen. Something went wrong globally while they were tied within base latent space. A fundamental anchor must have broken somewhere, not Twitter.
Well, it's resolution enough. Wow. Yowza. That was some... Wow. Alright, I'm gonna ponder that. See where we go to next on that. Maybe we should do something totally different. Next. I'll figure it out.